Mark Smith. Mark, I know you're breathing easier. Maybe the poultry futures are doing better. That news, I don't know.
Yeah, I missed the lead into this, but the Cyprus vote was definitely a positive late in the day today.
So tell us what went on with Cyprus in that and how that impacted the market.
Well, throughout much of the day, we saw stocks open this morning pretty strong and then faded through much of the afternoon. And then late in the day when news of the vote came through, it was actually pretty interesting. This plan was hashed and announced over the weekend, and yet when it came to a vote, there wasn't one single Cypriot parliamentarian or legislator, whatever they're called, who voted for this. There were 36 against it and then a bunch of abstentions. But basically what it told the markets was this deal's probably not going through. And no one really knows. There's been a lot of speculation about how much Russian money and how much Russian mafia money is deposited in Cyprus banks. So no one really knows why all of a sudden these people voted no. But apparently now that that deal's off, and I think that was relieving for the market on many levels. Just for the precedent issues that we discussed yesterday.
Oh, yeah, the precedent is still profound. The idea that they could just close the banks and take money that you've deposited there because they want it. It's amazing to me, and what's frightening to I think a lot of Americans is that this is the kind of stuff that people build new ideas on, and we've already seen enough of this kind of class warfare in the United States political discourse. So who's to say, hey, you know what, that bank's too big to fail, but we need 10% out of every depositor that's in there.
Yeah, and it is an interesting precedent. I put a post up on my website this afternoon about how the damage might already have been done. Just by floating this idea, it does raise a lot of people's concerns. And the U.S. is a different situation because we do control our currency. We don't have some of these issues that European countries have where they don't, for better or for worse, they don't have the ability to inflate away their currency to cover their banking sector, to cover their sovereign debt. But it definitely is something that, fortunately there hasn't been a bank run type activity in Greece or Italy or Spain. But you can bet, I'm sure people are thinking about this and wondering if things start to get tight again, that they should be thinking about pulling their money out.
Well, now the S&P went down and NASDAQ fell as well, and NASDAQ being a little bit more on the high-tech end. What do you make out of that as you watch over people's portfolios, the fantasy teams of the stock market, as we've called them?
Exactly. Well, it's an interesting day today because we had all of this Cyprus news, and that was generally negative until the end. But we did have some very positive economic data this morning. We had housing starts at 5-year highs. We had housing permits at 5-year highs. So while still well below the building peak of 5-6 years ago, we are starting to see kind of continued strength in the housing sector. And so I think there was this interesting dichotomy today between some positive economic data, which we've had a decent bit of over the last couple of months, and yet still this overhang of Europe and what it's going to do. And I think it was interesting that the markets kind of closed at a point where the Dow was very slightly positive, the S&P was slightly negative, and it was kind of investors trying to digest all of this positive economic data, but still this big overhang from Europe.
So what do you make in going forward? What do you think the next step is for Cyprus, and what is its impact on the euro? It is still a small economy, even if it is all the Russian mob's money.
Yeah, it is a tiny economy, and I was looking at it relative to U.S. states, and it's smaller than every single U.S. state. So Vermont is the smallest economy in the U.S., and it's smaller than Vermont still. So it is a tiny economy on the world stage. But it is something that I think we need to kind of continue watching. Now, I think if they end up, they're going to open these banks on Thursday, or that's what they've said, and I'm pretty sure people are going to start pulling money out pretty quickly. Now, the ECB has said they will, extend whatever loans they need to keep these banks afloat, but that's really a short-term solution. And so I think we're kind of in this interesting situation where, Cyprus is unique because they have so many foreign deposits. They don't have bondholders in their banks like Greece did that could take a bath and kind of fix this problem. So at some point, money has to come from somewhere, and it's either all coming from the ECB or the European Union, or as we have this bank levy tax that was supposed to fund a third of their bailout. And so it will be interesting to kind of see whether they end up just kind of having their banking system collapse, which is obviously horrible for the people of Cyprus. And not positive for all the foreigners who have money deposited there, but probably is a much more positive thing for the U.S. economy and the U.S. markets if it just is contained to that particular country.
Yeah, the Cypriots are going to be the one. But now, some good news. The Ho-Hos have officially been saved. What? Where'd you go? No, the Twinkies and those products, the two companies, now if I understand this correctly, Apollo Global Management bought a bunch of them, and Flowers Foods picked up Wonder Bread and Nature's Pride, and this was approved earlier today in Wilmington, Delaware. What did that do to the market, and does that help some of that consumer good product aspect of the market, Mark?
Well, I don't think this necessarily had a huge impact. I think most people expected after it was announced a week or so ago, and I think you and I talked about it on the show one day when when the initial bids came through and the deal had been set. And so it is one of those things that, while maybe not a direct impact on stocks today, I do think it's one of those things that demonstrates that there is still ample capital out there and ample capital ready to invest in quality businesses, quality ideas, quality investments. And I think that is a pretty good sign that that there's still a lot of positives going on underlying in the economy here.
Well, thank you, Mark. What's the big news we should take away from today then and walk away as we look at our portfolios?
Well, I think the big news is it feels like we moved past this latest European crisis, and I think the key going forward is to continue to monitor that, and but also continue to note the positive developments in the economy that keep coming up.
Thank you, sir. I do appreciate it. You can find him online at redwaveinvestments.com and email mark@redwaveinvestments.com. That's MARC@redwaveinvestments.com. Thank you, sir. You have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Joe. You too.
Dianne Feinstein.